Hello everybody. Today I'm bringing you guys the Domain Monarch deck. This is Carl from Team Rogue, and I'm going to produce you guys an awesome deck profile today. So without further ado, let's jump right into things. The first thing that we're running in here, we're running 3 copies of Idea, the Heavenly Squire. Idea is basically going to allow us to basically tribute summon. She's going to provide the fodder for our tributes. And so what you do with Idea is you summon her. She allows you to special out our next monster, Eidos. Eidos comes from the deck. Whenever you normal summon the Idea, by special summoning Eidos, Eidos will give us an additional summon so that we can tribute. And so basically by running these two, Idea as well as Eidos, we are able to go ahead on and have our tribute fodder engine in the deck. Idea also helps us when she goes to the graveyard by being able to recycle our spells and traps from the banish zone. And so anytime she goes there, you can bring back one of your spells and traps from being banished. And so they have multiple uses. Next up, we run 1 Caius, the Mega Monarch. Caius is there to provide us with a little bit of burn damage as well as to be a big body. He helps us to be able to attack over whatever we need to attack over and take care of any problematic cards that might come up along the way by banishing them. We won 1 Vanity's Fiend and 1 Majesty's Fiend. The reason that you run these in this deck because they're floodgate monsters and they help to go along with the theme of the deck with the domain. And so you can definitely bump up if you find that you like the Vanity's Fiend more. You can definitely play 2 Vanity's Fiends instead of the Majesties. I had both of them, so I chose to run 1 of each. But I'll leave that up to personal preference. So in the deck we run 3 of the Erebus. Erebus helps us to dump our spell and traps to the graveyard, as well as to be able to pull resources out of our opponent's hand. His effect is that you can dump 2 spell traps, one spell or trap to the graveyard, and the Monarch spell or traps to the graveyard, and then remove a card, pull a card from your opponent's hand. And so he does a really good job of helping us to take care of problematic things in our opponent's hand. It's random, but you get to make your opponent start with 1 less card, and that's always a plus for you. Karaz. Karaz is the draw power for the deck, as well as being able to pop problematic monsters that come up. We run 2 copies of Karaz because in combination with our next monster, which is Ether, it allows us to be able to have interruption on our opponent's turn. Karaz, when we see something problematic getting ready to come up, if need be, we can always pop one of our opponent's monsters by bringing it out with Ether on our opponent's turn, and then it provides interruption that way. And so we see our opponents building up a problematic strategy. You use Ether, you summon Ether, you special out the Karaz from the deck, and then you pop maybe a card on your field and a card on your opponent's board. We run a lot of continuous spells and traps in this deck, so it's easy to pop a card on our side as well as pop a card on your opponent's side. That's it for our main monsters. Next up is our spell lineup. For the spells, we run 3 Tenacity of the Monarch. This is the main searcher. This is the rota for the deck. Tenacity allows you to go through the deck and get out whatever spell or trap card that you need, as long as you have a 24 or attack and 1,000 defense monster in your hand, or a 28 attack and 1,000 defense, which is pretty much all of your Monarch cards, including Majesty's Fiend. Vanity's Fiend is the only one that does not meet that requirement because the defense is not 1,000. It's actually 1,200. However, this is the rotor for the deck. It allows you to go through and search out whatever spell or trap you need, and it will allow you to basically have a toolbox at hand. This is the monster rotor for the deck. By attributing one of the monsters, you get to basically add another Monarch card to your hand, another Monarch monster to your hand. And so what we do is you usually set this up, hopefully turn 1, and then you go ahead on and you always make sure that you have your tribute monsters in your hand by using this card. We run 2 of them because with so much spell and trap removal now in the game, you want to have a second one to be able to put on the board should the first one get destroyed. So you run 2 copies of Return of the Monarchs, and what it does is allows you to keep resources in hand. Next, it's in the name of the deck. We run Domain of the True Monarchs. Basically what it does is, because we don't run an extra deck in this deck, you basically take away your opponent's extra deck. And so anytime you have a tribute summon monster on the board, your opponent is not allowed to special summon from their extra deck. What this does is basically lock your opponent out of the extra deck without having to use the Union Carrier Buster lock. You can just slap this baby out there, summon a tribute monster, and then your opponent's locked out of their extra deck. It also allows you to lower the level of your big Monarchs. And so instead of having to do 2 tributes for it, you can lower them down to a level 6 and only use 1 tribute for them. Also, what this card does is it drops attack when you make an attack. So if your opponent's monster is at 3,000, the Monarchs are at 28, you can lower them when you attack them down by 500. And so that also helps you to get over some of the bigger monsters that we might be faced with running the deck. Next up, we run 3 copies of Monarch Stormforce. We like to tribute our opponent's monsters, more or less. It doesn't target, and it lets us to be able to get over pretty much anything that's on our opponent's side that we can't just generally take care of by running it over or popping it. And so by being able to tribute not only your monsters but your opponent's monsters as well, this provides additional outs for the deck to be able to get over things that may come up, especially if we're going second. And so we run 3 of these. Not sure if you guys remember, Stormforce was previously on the ban list. It was banned or limited to 1, and they unlimited it back to 3. So it was put down to 1 for a reason, because Stormforce is a really good card. And now the reason for the deck profile, we have 3 Pantheisms. And so basically this is your real draw power for the deck. You have your Tenacity that searches, and this card right here, it does a lot for the deck. It allows it to be able to be consistent. And so with this, you send a spell or trap card from your hand, and it allows you to basically take to draw 2 cards, and then you can banish it and then take out 3 spell or traps, and then your opponent chooses one for you to put back in your hand. And so you're getting a lot of plus off of this card. And with usually the way you use it is with Idea. With Idea, you usually are going to put this card back in your hand so that you can continue to recycle and loop these draw cards. And so now that it's back up to 3, the deck should be a lot more consistent than it has been previously with the card being at 1. That's it for the spells. We're going to move right along into the traps. The first trap that we're going to run is 3 of the Prime Monarchs. This is our other summon monster that we use for tribute. Basically, by this card being in the graveyard, you can banish a spell and special summon it back, or another Monarch spell or trap card. You can banish it and special summon it back, and it counts as, let's see what its stats are. The stats are 1000 attack and 2400 defense, so it has a 2400 booty on it that can provide you with defense, or you can use it to tribute and then bring it back. You can only do it once per turn, of course, but the fact that you can do it on your turn and your opponent's turn is the reason that we run 3. So we would like to get, you know, at least 2 of these in the graveyard so we can continuously have a supply of bringing them back and tributing them off for our Monarch cards. Alright, next up, we run 1 copy of Metaverse to be able to slap a domain of the true Monarchs on the field, especially on our opponent's turn. They don't realize that we got a tributed monster out there and, you know, are playing domain Monarchs. Then we basically go right into that on our opponent's turn. We put a domain on the board, and now our opponents can't special summon from their extra deck. You usually do it right after they normal summon, and then they're stuck. Next up, we play 2 Monarch Erupts. This is skill drain for Monarchs. As long as you control a tributed monster, this card is able to stay on the field, and it is skill drain basically for everything that's not a tribute summon monster. All other monsters will lose their effects, and so we run it because why wouldn't you run a skill drain? We run 2 escalations of the Monarchs. The reason that we run this card is because you want to be able to tribute and provide interruptions on your opponent's turn. Being able to you know, pop a card, or being able to summon out Vanity's Fiend or any of your tribute monsters and have their effects activate on your opponent's turn is really good, and it provides that interruption that you need to stay competitive. So we run 2 of these in order to be competitive and stop and, you know, interrupt our opponents. And so you don't want your opponent's strategy to get off if you can help it. This deck doesn't build the, you know, nth negate board that, you know, you can just negate, but what it does do is it tributes on your opponent's turn and pops off their effects, so that when your opponent tries to build a strategy, you interrupt it, and then they have to try to rethink their strategy. It forces your opponent to rethink, and by doing that, we run this card in the deck. In order to do that, we run this card in the deck. And so the reason that we run 2 of them again is because back row destruction is a thing. We just got Harpy's Feather Duster off the ban list, and because we have that, and you have to run 2 of all of your main spells or traps so that you're able to see it. Even if one gets blown up, you're still able to see the other one. And lastly, it's a personal tech of mine that I like to run. The Monarchs Awaken. The reason I like to run this card is because it's basically a lance for your Monarchs. After you've tributed them and used their effects, Monarchs typically don't have effects, but by activating the Monarchs Awaken, you can basically make your Monarch invincible to other card effects for the turn. And so, you know, say your opponent tries to go Lightning Storm. Okay, you activate the Monarchs Awaken, your Monarch now survives that Lightning Storm. And so that's why we run that 1 card. It's a trap, it's chainable, and it helps you to be able to survive the turn and put in that damage. So I like the card at 1. When it comes up, it comes up. It doesn't always come up, but when it does come up, it comes up. Many times you're gonna want to search probably a Stormforth over it, but like I said, when you draw into it, you're never like sad about drawing into it because it's good protection for your board. Pretty much that's the deck. Everything in the deck serves a purpose. We don't have an extra deck in this deck. Again, this is Domain Monarchs, and so because we're playing Domain Monarchs, you don't really want to have cards in your extra deck that is gonna clog you up. I did think about running the pot cards and maybe putting 6 cards in my extra decks just so I could have an extra draw engine. But I think with the 3 Pantheisms being back, you don't really need to do that. Pantheism is enough to help the deck to draw, and you'll still be able to see what you want to see in the deck. Let me know what you guys think about the deck profile. Like, share, subscribe, and comment down below and let me know what else you guys want to see. Thanks so much. See you soon.